Wow, wow. The tabloids have been left toothless, scrambling for words, gasping for headlines, as Buckingham Palace has now confirmed what many never thought they would live to see. King Charles met with his younger son, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, in the sacred and history-heavy halls of Clarence House. The meeting, officially described by the palace as a private tea, has already sent shockwaves through Britain and across the world, not because tea was served, but because silence was broken. The father and son, divided for years by bitter rifts, public betrayals, and deep-rooted mistrust, found themselves face to face once again. And the detail that has stunned royal watchers the most is its brevity and its weight. Prince Harry spent 55 minutes inside Clarence House, 55 minutes in the same room as the monarch who once held him as a baby, who once promised to shield him from the storm of royal life, but who later became part of the institution that sought to crush him when he dared to live free. 55 minutes that history will study, not because of what was said, we do not yet know that, but because of what it meant for two men who have been kept apart, not just by geography, but by walls built from pride, loyalty, anger, and grief. The palace has confirmed the meeting. Yet the same palace, often so quick to leak, to brief, to paint Prince Harry as the rebellious outsider, suddenly becomes silent when the world demands details. A curious silence. A deliberate restraint. Buckingham Palace has not provided further explanation, no notes of reconciliation, no smiles recorded by cameras, no leaks of warm words exchanged. For once, the tabloids who fed for years on every shadow of Harry's life find themselves starving. They cannot spin what they do not know. They cannot fill in blanks when the walls of Clarence House have closed so tightly. The result? A press corps left toothless, pacing, rattling cages, their ink drying in frustration, as the truth of the meeting remains locked behind royal doors. At exactly 5:20 p.m, Prince Harry arrived, not cloaked in the pomp and ceremony of a gilded carriage, not flanked by sycophantic courtiers, but arriving in his own time, carrying with him the calm confidence of a man who has built his own name outside the confines of monarchy. The streets outside Clarence House did not roar with pageantry, but there was an unmistakable hum. Onlookers who knew that this was no ordinary arrival. This was not another royal duty staged for cameras. This was family, fractured family, meeting behind doors for the first time since Harry's departure from the royal fold. The air itself felt heavy with history. Clarence House, a residence layered in generations of memory, once the beloved home of the late Queen Mother, now the London residence of King Charles, became the setting for what could be a turning point in royal relations. Those walls, which had echoed with royal whispers for decades, now held the words of a father and son divided. For years, Britain has been caught in a storm of what-ifs. What if Harry and his father never reconciled? What if the monarchy continued to unravel under the weight of its divisions? What if the wounds left by years of media wars and institutional betrayal could never be healed? And now, with a single meeting, lasting not hours, not an entire afternoon, but exactly 55 minutes, the questions have only multiplied. Observers note the symbolism of the tea. In Britain, tea is never just tea. It is ritual, it is diplomacy, it is peacemaking and power play. Tea can be offered as a welcome or as a truce. Tea can mean conversation or confrontation. And so the very word private tea sends ripples of speculation. Did King Charles pour his son a cup with steady hands, or did his fingers tremble? Did Harry sip as his father spoke, or did he hold the cup untouched, focused on the words exchanged? These are not trivial details. They are the small human truths that turn royal meetings into history. The press, long the predators of this fractured relationship, have found themselves muzzled. For years they dined on Harry's pain, painting him as the prodigal son, the runaway duke, the exile who dared to criticize the monarchy. They branded him disloyal, accused him of betraying the firm, and yet today they cannot deny reality. The king agreed to meet his son, in private, face to face. This fact alone dismantles years of tabloid narratives that claimed reconciliation was impossible, that the king had turned his back permanently. One meeting has already left those headlines crumbling. And what of the emotion? For all their differences, for all the scars carved by words and silences, Harry is still the son of Charles. The very bloodline that the monarchy worships as its core is what bound them together again in that 55 minutes. Did Charles look into Harry's eyes and see not the rebel Duke, but the boy he once walked to school? Did Harry, for all his independence and strength, still feel the echo of being the youngest son standing before his father? This is the storm beneath the silence. The questions the tabloids will never be able to answer because they were not invited into that room. The palace silence is also its own weapon. By withholding detail, Buckingham Palace forces the world to acknowledge the fact of the meeting itself. It is not for the courtiers or the commentators to interpret what happened. It is for father and son alone. And perhaps that is the greatest shock of all, that for once the palace has not weaponized this moment, has not leaked to damage Harry, has not painted him as the outsider. Instead, it confirmed and then sealed its lips. For once, the game of briefing and counter-briefing has ended in silence. And silence, in this case, is deafening. But why now? Why this moment? The context cannot be ignored. Britain is in the throes of questioning the very relevance of its monarchy. The cost of living crisis rages. Public opinion toward the royals wavers, and scandals of laziness, extravagance, and hypocrisy cling to the Windsor name. In the midst of this turbulence, Prince Harry returns to the UK, standing tall in his own identity, no longer dependent on the machinery of monarchy, but still carrying the blood and the history. His presence is powerful, his voice impossible to silence. And so, perhaps, the palace knows it cannot afford to appear forever divided. Perhaps this meeting, however short, was inevitable. Yet it is not reconciliation, not yet. 55 minutes is not enough to erase decades of pain. But it is enough to open a door, to show that even in the most fractured families, conversation is still possible. It is enough to shift the ground beneath the tabloids who thrived on predicting endless estrangement. It is enough to remind the world that this story, the story of Harry and Charles, is not over. When Prince Harry left Clarence House, no official statement was given. No photograph captured father and son together. But the symbolism was already written. Harry had entered, Harry had spoken, Harry had left, and the world knew. That is why the tabloids are toothless, because the truth does not need embellishment. It stands on its own, stronger than years of gossip and speculation. And this, more than anything, casts a long shadow over Prince William and his wife Kate. For all their staged smiles, choreographed outings, and carefully arranged photo ops, they were nowhere to be seen at Clarence House. The future king and queen were silent spectators, left out of the one conversation that mattered most. And here lies the deepest irony. For years, William and Kate were pushed as the shining hope of the monarchy, while Harry was painted as the wayward spare. Yet it is Harry who now commands the attention of the nation, Harry who sits with the king, Harry who dominates headlines without even speaking a word. William and Kate's absence is louder than their presence could ever be. It tells a story of a couple who, despite all their advantages, cannot summon the gravity, the moral courage, or the authenticity to step into the arena where Harry now stands unchallenged. The streets outside Clarence House told the tale plainly. When news broke that Harry was inside, cheers rippled through the small crowds gathered. Supporters raised phones, hoping for a glimpse of the red-haired prince they call the People's Prince. There were no chants for William, no banners for Kate, no excitement for the pair often lauded by tabloids as the monarchy's saviours. The contrast was unavoidable. Harry, once pushed aside, now drew warmth and loyalty effortlessly, while William and Kate inspired only silence. As Clarence House returned to its stillness, Britain found itself unsettled. 55 minutes had shifted the narrative. 55 minutes had undone years of carefully curated tabloid scripts. 55 minutes had shown that the king could no longer deny the presence, power, and inevitability of his younger son. And 55 minutes had left William and Kate standing in the cold shadow of irrelevance. The monarchy has always thrived on illusion. Parades, rituals, jewels, and staged unity. But the illusion cracked today. Behind the gilded gates of Clarence House, reality intruded. A father needed to see his son, and a son needed to face his father. Not for the cameras, not for the press, but for themselves. That reality is what frightens the tabloids most, because they cannot spin authenticity. They cannot manufacture the genuine weight of a father and son meeting after years of division, and so they are toothless. forced into silence, just like the palace itself. History will not remember this as merely a tea. It will remember it as the moment when the monarchy's facade faltered, when the heir's irrelevance was exposed, and when the son who walked away proved that he was never gone at all. 55 minutes changed everything, and the echoes of that meeting will haunt the palace, the press, and the public for years to come. To all my curious Sussex family, thank you all for watching, and do not forget to subscribe, like, and put a comment. Bye-bye. See you then in our next episode.